Hello, and welcome to what is sadly going to be the very last mini cast, at least in this series. Today we are going to be talking about a game and just sharing kind of like our experiences with them if you haven't seen one of these mini casts before. Today we are talking about Men at Work, and I am joined by, to talk about this,
Daryl. Ian.
there we go, the whole lot. Yep, unfortunately some of us are returning to work real soon, which means we probably don't have the time to carry this series on, unfortunately. But hey, we might bring it back in the future. In the meantime, Men at Work is kind of Jesus, I've forgotten the word. What sort of a game is it,
It's a
guys?
board game,
It's
Steve.
a dexterity board
It
game,
is,
Stephen.
it is dexterity. That is exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you very much. It is a dexterity game where you're kind of building on a work site. So the box kind of comes with girders and little worker guys. You've got the nice centerpiece, which is the crane. I'll bring some of these bits out because it's nice to see these bits. You have girders. You have your workers. Then you have extra bits like bricks and wooden planks and other support beams and stuff like that. And essentially, you build a massive tower based on cards that you draw. So your cards are actually going to tell you what you need to do on your turn. So, in other words, if you are placing a girder of either, say, a red or a white girder, or it has to be touching a red or a white girder, it then tells you what you need to place. So it might be another girder with one worker, or a worker with two bricks, for example, in the case of that one. And you're only allowed to use one hand, and you have to place and balance them on the various bits and pieces. So there's not really a lot else to say in terms of the rules and stuff, because what you what is it? You have 3 safety certificates, and every single time you disturb a piece and knock them over, you lose one of your safety certificates. Lose 3 of them, and you're out of the game. There are also a couple of things to bear in mind in terms of the way that it actually words what you're placing. If it's saying you're, say, placing a worker with 2 bricks, for example, you place the worker down on the girder, and then you have to place a brick on each arm separately. So, yeah, that was rubbish. It may say you have to transport them holding 2 bricks, and this means that what you have to do is you have to actually place the 2 bricks on the worker first, and then place the worker, which is a whole lot more difficult, especially when you can't even balance the brick on them to begin with. So there we go, that's gone, that's failed horribly again. So transporting generally is a little bit harder, although I tend to find that when you have to transport a girder with a couple of bricks on or something like that, that usually tends to be fine. Apart from that, I think that is more or less the entire game. The backs of the cards actually show what you're going to be placing next. So, for example, a helmet would mean you're placing a worker. And the 2 coloured gloves would be you have to place them on either a black or a purple girder. And I think the girders is you just have to pick a colour, and you have to... Isn't it you have to place them touching either a white or a red girder, or is it you have to place a white or a red girder? I forgot.
I think it's touching either a blah 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 or blah blah blah.
Yeah, so you get to select the colour of the girder you're actually putting down, although sometimes, I think it sometimes says that they have to touch one with the same colour or something. Yeah, what's on the back of the cards is actually the colour of girder you're allowed to place, because what's written on the cards, it will usually say something like a new support and touch a different colour. So, in other words, the girder that you are placing has to touch a different coloured girder, basically. That is everything to this game. Like a lot of dexterity games, they don't really have a whole lot of rules to them, you know. That said, this is incredibly good fun. There's a lot of little extra bits, like, for example, you have the hook, which goes to either the previous or the... I've forgotten whether it goes to the previous player or whether it goes to the next player. But essentially, if someone drops a brick, say, like I did earlier, they would take this hook and they would hook it away from the build site. You can mess around with different building arrangements as to how you set it up first thing. You get a few examples in the rule book of different setups for how to play. So in other words, where you start with, and then you just start building on top of that. There's a couple of other rules to it. There is Rita, who is the worksite foreman. If they turn up at some point, then you can start gaining Worker of the Month awards, which are in the form of these little rosettes. Again, if you earn 3 rosettes over the course of the game, you win the game as well. You essentially get these by building the tallest point currently on the map. So your hook actually has a double purpose. It also doubles up as a ruler, so you can measure how high everything is going down. If you build the highest point that's currently built, then you get one of these Worker of the Month awards. So, is there anything I've missed?
No, I think that's it. End of video.
Oh,
See you
did
next
you-
time.
Yeah.
Did you mention the
So-
like the variations and stuff like that?
The variations?
Like with the box, where you can use the box to do different styles.
Yeah. This is a really interesting feature of the game. You can actually use the box itself. I'm not sure. We've never actually played with it, have we? And there it all goes on the floor.
No, we haven't.
Won't
We've
be
only
using
ever-
that again this video.
We've only ever used the standard, like on the table, whereas there's an option to use the box itself as like almost like a skyscraper, which is quite interesting. So you can build the blocks balancing in a certain way on the box, so it's even higher up, and it kind of adds this level of you're in like New York or wherever, building a huge ass skyscraper, which it kind of
That actually is the variant. The variant is called Skyscraper.
Oh, brilliant! I got it right.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy in a way when you think about it, because it's already can be a very difficult game when it starts getting a bit over the top with the dexterity. Whereas if it's even higher, it kind of throws it a bit more. It's even more difficult, I would say.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean, because personally I find this game extremely easy.
No, you don't.
You've
You've done it drunk a couple of times, or you've been drinking a few times when you've played it,
I
and you're like,
have
"Oh,
only...
I have no need to use any motor skills whatsoever. Look how amazing I am!" And then it all falls, doesn't it?
That's not true. I have only ever misplaced an item once. And I have
Right.
never lost a game.
I like this is the
I
idea
knew
where it's just
you'd
like, I've
never
played
lost
one
a game
game,
with this.
I've never lost the game.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I've only ever
I-
had one breach in health and safety.
Amazing.
So, even whilst inebriated, I am good at that game.
Yeah, even when you've been drunk, you've still won the game, definitely. Because, you're currently undefeated at Men at Work.
It's a great game. I love it. It's not because of the victories or the little trophy I made myself out of Play-Doh. It's genuinely a really fun game because it's one of those games where whilst someone's taking their turn, it's not everyone sat there going, "Oh, this is boring." It's everyone sat there going, "Oh."
Exactly. This is a game filled with ahs and oohs, and it's amazing. Just for that in itself, it's it's a game that's filled with tension.
Yeah,
I would say probably I don't
100%.
know. I can't really think of a. I know it tends to be a trait of most dexterity games that you have this whole air of tension about it, but I don't think another dexterity game has it quite the same as this one.
No.
it's constant, isn't it? Because what you're doing is always risky, almost.
Yeah,
It's not like Mega City Oceania, for example, which has elements of that where you're pushing it into the center, but because everyone's
yeah.
doing their own thing the rest of the time, it brings the tension down, and it's almost
I
separate, that part of the game, to the rest of the game. Whereas this is it's almost like Jenga. I guess Jenga is the closest, but it's
or
definitely.
Buckaroo or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. This
it's
is
better.
reverse Buckaroo, pretty
Yeah,
much.
it's better in that you have constructed the whole thing and you make it difficult for other people.
Yeah, yeah. So the best way I could probably compare it to Mega City Oceania in terms of the way people react to it is that in Mega City Oceania, we generally tend to find that the whole pushing your city into the centre of the board thing is less a case of can they do it and more a case of I really hope they screw this up because not many people screw this up and it gives me an extra turn. Whereas in Men at Work, you kind of both simultaneously want to see them fail but also succeed because a
Yeah.
lot of the time when someone actually manages to do something difficult you really have that sense of oh my god that was actually genuinely really impressive, whereas you don't really seem to get that in Mega City Oceania, I think. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy to move your city into the centre of Mega City Oceania, and
Yeah,
I tend to find if you are messing it up in Mega City Oceania, it's because you're being impatient, not
yeah,
because it's hard to do.
yes, I think so. um
The thing is with
Whereas
the thing I find with this, it's almost you want someone to do better than you. So you can kind of because when you win in like the highest award and stuff like that, it's almost worth someone doing really, 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 really well. So it sort of leaves you a building block to build upon for yourself, rather than kind
yeah,
of. You've also got the other opportunity where it's like um, everyone's kind of not playing against each other, I guess, but they're also trying to kind of one-upmanship almost. It's quite cool.
yeah. So um I was going to say, can we really think of any times we've played this in something? I think one of the things that always happens in every game, because we always play with the crane.
Yeah.
I can't think of a time where we haven't played with the crane. Um, Someone always tries and balances things against the crane in order to get that
Yeah,
highest point.
100%.
And usually, as soon as one person's done that, it becomes very hard to best it. But everyone's going to try anyway, and
Yeah.
that's where people really burn up their safety certificates. Um, that's one of the things I always remember about the game. I think another reason why people really enjoy this game over Mega City Oceania as well is because so much can go wrong. In Mega City Oceania, like we were saying, it really feels like it's kind of a done thing
Yeah. It also
when
sort of
someone has to move their thing.
only affects you as well, almost. Like
Yeah, it
if
does.
you knock over your whole city, you're sat there. You're not your whole city, sorry, your whole building. You're going there like, oh, that's annoying. I'm going to rebuild the same city for the next time and try and push it back into place. That's really irritating. I miss a turn. Whereas
Yeah,
with Men at Work, everybody's watching because they know it's going to affect their next move.
yeah, yeah.
It's much more involved.
It is. Really, I don't know whether I've got a lot else really to say about it. I mean, other than
Other than
it's
it's
a good game.
highly recommended by all of us, I think.
Yeah, can we think
It's-
of any stories in particular?
We have tried building like almost ridiculous things off the crane, which I think was that one with like Sean where we tried building it almost like a triangle piece at one point, and it was ridiculous. Like we had stuff balancing, it, and then a dude was just perched ever so gently on the edge of one of the things, and then had to have another like beam put on top of him, and it was just ridiculous.
Um, I can't remember. I know I would have been there.
You would have been there. I swear, unless we were just doing it for fun at the end, we were just trying to build like a ridiculous thing on top of the crane, seeing how you could do it, not for points.
Possibly, yeah. I seem to remember something like that. I think that we did. Um, I know one thing. Actually, one thing I haven't mentioned about this game that I probably would say makes this a little more playable over, certainly a bit more fun than Mega City Oceania, is you can set other people up for a bad time.
Oh yeah, that's the best way to win. Is you think if I put this in a position where it's not at all secure, if they need
Yeah.
to use that pole or they need to interact with that pole in any way, shape, or form, and it's not even the next person, you're thinking, so long as it happens before me, you got maybe 4 chances for someone to fluff the dumb pole you've just put in place. And then by that point, when everything's fallen down, you've got a much easier time when it comes to your turn again. So
Yeah.
I guess that's the that's the meta behind playing it. But yeah, it's very fun when you look at the look on someone's face when you set them up for something really horrendous, and they're looking at you like, "What?
What did I do
No, come
here?
on, that's not okay."
Yeah, and I think that's why you'd probably find you'd have more good memories of this over, say, something like Mega City Oceania, is because games are meant to be played with people, and sometimes Mega City Oceania feels like its own kind of thing, whereas this, you're very much involved with other people all the time.
The biggest problem with
Um,
Mega City Oceania is Steve's buildings are so ugly that
that's very
I
true.
I end up sort of playing by my own set of rules where the buildings have to look aesthetically pleasing, and I look, and Steve's has kind of piled everything onto one, like a pile of rubble, and moved it into the centre of the board. And it's so upsetting to look at.
The only thing I will say, though, is I think I have a much better record at Mega City Oceania than I do at Men at Work. I can only ever remember winning one game of Men at Work, whereas I've won quite a few games of Mega City Oceania.
I think that's fair.
I think that's the only thing I'd say. But I think games aren't always about.
It's not always about the winning. Sometimes it's about making buildings look really nice so that you don't trigger me.
Yes.
Or seeing someone else lose in such dramatic fashion that it doesn't really matter if you win or lose, because everyone bar that loser has kind of won for seeing it.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
satisfying as well to hear stuff falling down and making like all the noises it makes.
Yeah, that is cool.
My personal favourite bit is when somebody is sort of committed to what they've done, but they know that they shouldn't have. And
Yeah.
there's a look on their face which is anxiety, stress, sort of relief that it's all over, but like still clasping onto that hope that they might be able to do it. But
Yeah.
the understanding behind their eyes that they've beansed it. And
But then there's always that sheer determination as well as they're
and, like,
placing it.
the sweat, and and they're hovering over, or they're slightly contacting one bit, and they're looking at it, and you can see that they know it's over. They hope it's not over. They're sort of glad it's over, and it's such a weird mix of emotions. But the facial expressions you get during that game are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about this? Any other stories you can think of?
No, I think they all blur into one for me personally.
No,
Like,
this is the
it's
problem, yeah.
Such a, I mean, it's a great game, but like each turn is so you're not focusing on the ins and outs of the story of one game. It's just the hope that what you're doing succeeds. So I don't think there's a huge amount in my head. It doesn't connect as a story. More of times where I've watched individual people have small breakdowns as they wreck something they've worked so hard to build.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I think so. I think this is yet another game that gets an absolutely glowing recommendation from all three of us. That is Men at Work.
It is a definite.
Yeah, And unfortunately, that brings us to the end, not just of this episode, but of this series as a whole. We may return with a series 2 one day.
The winter
Really-
series, we'll call it.
Well, it really depends whether we fall into another lockdown or not, really.
Winter series. You think we're going to have
Yes.
any time during the winter to do this? Like,
You'll see. My premonitions.
okay.
We'll go out.
Mystic
They'll be like,
Daryl
"Oh."
thinks that we'll have a
No, no,
winter
no, no.
break. Okay.
Yeah, I reckon it'll boom up again.
Anyway,
We-
have you guys enjoyed doing these?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. It's nice sometimes to talk about games that aren't current.
I think
And
we
we
get
get
so
to
distracted when we're discussing things on the podcast that we want to talk about specific games that we've played here and there, and I think this is a good way to do it without
Yeah.
Yeah.
constantly going off topic in the podcast, which we're gonna do. But
We do anyway.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, usually we've got so much. Like, if we talked in depth like we do in these games, in these mini casts like we did on the actual podcast, the podcast would be like 3 hours long every week. So, it's nice to be able to just focus on one game and talk about it for as long as we can, really. Especially when it's games that we really enjoy and are really passionate about as well.
Yeah.
It's nice to do that. So yeah, hopefully one of these days we'll return with another one of these games. And if you'd like to keep track of whether that will ever happen, what better way than to follow us on social medias, on Twitter at EverybodyDice and on Instagram at EverybodyDiceShow. We also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/EverybodyDice. And if you want to find more of our stuff, you can do on everybodydice.com, where we keep all of our stuff, audio podcasts, written reviews, all of that stuff, all on there. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe, and maybe click one of these videos that's appeared on screen right now. Apart from that, see you around.
That's that one there. That's a good video. Click that one. Yeah.
I think the one on the
Yeah.
other side is just as good, if not better.
Nice.
This one that Steve is caressing now. Caress one, Steve.
Caress
Yeah.
it, Steve.
Yeah, that one. Oh, it's a banger. It's a good one.
Yeah. Thank you Thank you very much for joining us. We went on for that so long that I'm just going to be caressing nothing now. Thank you very much for joining us in this series, and we'll see you around. Bye.
Bye.